In that house lived humans, pigs, dogs, chickens, and ducks, with hardly any difference in the buildings they inhabited or the food they consumed. The master and his wife lived on the first floor of a warped building resembling a storage shed, while the mother and daughter rented a space in the attic. This daughter was pregnant with a child whose father was unknown. The room Izawa rented was a small hut detached from the main house. It was said that in the past, the son of this family, who suffered from tuberculosis, used to sleep there. But it was not too luxurious a hut even for a tubercular pig. Still, it had a closet, a toilet, and a cupboard. The master and his wife ran a tailor shop and also taught sewing in the neighborhood. That's why they put their tubercular son in a separate hut. They also served as officers in the neighborhood association. The daughter renting the attic was originally a clerk for the neighborhood association, staying at the office and reportedly maintaining fair relations with all the officers except the chairman and the tailor, which eventually led to her becoming pregnant with someone's child. Consequently, the officers pooled money to have her deal with the child in the attic. However, as fate would have it, one of the officers was a tofu shop owner, and he continued visiting her even after she hid in the attic, eventually making her his mistress. When the other officers realized this, they stopped contributing money, insisting that the tofu shop owner should cover the living expenses for the month of this turning point, leading to 7 or 8 people, including a greengrocer, a watchmaker, and a landlord refusing to pay 5 yen per person. To this day, the daughter is stamping her feet in frustration. This daughter had a large mouth and big eyes, yet she was terribly thin. She disliked ducks and tried to give leftovers only to the chickens, but the ducks would snatch them away, causing her to chase the ducks angrily every day. Her manner of running, with her large belly and backside protruding forward and backward in a strange, upright posture, resembled that of a duck. At the exit of this alley was a tobacco shop where a 55-year-old woman lived, wearing face powder. She had recently driven away her 7th or 8th lover and was contemplating whether to take a middle-aged monk or a middle-aged businessman as her new partner. It was said that if a young man went to buy tobacco from the back door, she would sell some at a black market price, and the tailor suggested that Izawa should try going there too. However, fortunately, Izawa received a special ration from his workplace and did not need to rely on her. Meanwhile, behind the rice distribution center across the street lived a widow with a bit of money. She had a brother and sister who were factory workers and 2 children, but the brother and sister were actually in a marital relationship. The widow, thinking it was economically beneficial, turned a blind eye to this. However, when the brother found a new woman, they had to do something about the sister. Consequently, she was to be married off to a relative, an elderly man in his 50s or 60s, and she ended up drinking poison. After drinking it, she came to the tailor's shop where Izawa lodged for a lesson, began to suffer, and eventually died. At that time, the local doctor issued a death certificate citing heart failure, and the matter quietly disappeared. What? Which doctor would issue such a convenient death certificate? Izawa asked in surprise, to which the tailor, looking bewildered, replied, "What? Isn't that how it is elsewhere?" In this area, many cheap apartments were built, and some of the rooms were occupied by mistresses or prostitutes. Since they had no children and kept their rooms clean, they were appreciated by the landlords. As a result, their private lives' disorder or immorality had never been an issue. More than half of the apartments served as dormitories for munitions factories, housing groups from the Women's Volunteer Corps. Among them were mistresses of certain department heads, wartime wives of section chiefs, whose real wives were evacuated, second wives of executives, and pregnant corps members who took leave from work but continued to receive salaries. Among them, a mistress who earned 500 yen had her own place and was envied, next to a ronin from Manchuria, whose sister was an apprentice at the tailor's. Lived a shiatsu master, and next to him was said to be a master of the Ginji tailor lineage. Behind them lived a Navy sub-lieutenant who ate fish, drank coffee, opened canned goods, and drank alcohol every day. Since water would spring up if you dug a foot deep in this area, it was difficult to build air raid shelters. But the sub-lieutenant alone had a splendid air raid shelter built with cement, more impressive than his house. Also, along the road Izawa took to commute, there was a department store, a 2-story wooden building, closed due to the war's lack of goods. But on the second floor, a gambling den opened daily, and its boss occupied several national taverns, glaring at the people in line while getting drunk every day. Izawa graduated from university and became a newspaper reporter, later becoming a director of cultural films, still an apprentice, never having directed alone. At the age of 27, he was expected to have some knowledge of the underworld and the behind the scenes of politicians, military men, businessmen, and entertainers. However, he could never have imagined that the reality of a shopping district surrounded by small factories and apartments was like this. When he wondered if it was because people's hearts had become desolate since the war, the tailor replied quietly with a philosopher's expression, "No, around here it's always been like this." However, the most significant person was Izawa's neighbor. This neighbor was somewhat eccentric. Despite his considerable wealth, he had intentionally built his house deep within an alley, likely due to an unusual mindset that led him to have an extreme aversion to thieves and unnecessary visitors. Even after passing through the gate of the house at the end of the alley, there was no visible entrance. All that could be seen were windows fitted with lattices, and the entrance to the house was located at the back, opposite the gate, requiring one to circle the building to reach it. This setup was designed to deter unnecessary intruders or to ensure they would be spotted and warned off while wandering around searching for the entrance. The neighbor did not favor the vulgarities of society. The house was a 2-story building with quite a number of rooms, but even the knowledgeable tailor knew little about its internal arrangements. The madman was around 30 years old and lived with his mother and his wife, who was about 25 or 26. It was said that only the mother belonged to the realm of sanity, but she had a strong hysteria and was the only formidable woman in the neighborhood, known for storming barefoot into the neighborhood association when dissatisfied with the rations. Meanwhile, the madman's wife had an intellectual disability. In a fortunate year, the madman had a change of heart, donned a white robe, and set out on a pilgrimage to Shikoku. During this journey, somewhere in Shikoku, he connected with a woman with an intellectual disability and returned with her, as a souvenir of his pilgrimage. The madman was a handsome man with a dignified appearance, and his wife, despite her disability, seemed to be from a respectable family, possessing a refined demeanor and an impressively beautiful face reminiscent of a traditional doll or no mask, and with narrow eyes. When seen together, they appeared to be an ideal couple, handsome and beautiful, with considerable education. The madman wore strong prescription glasses and always had a weary, melancholic expression from reading many books. One day, during an air raid drill in the alley, while the wives were actively participating, the man was watching in a casual kimono, laughing loudly. Suddenly, he changed into an air raid suit, snatched a bucket from someone, and began drawing and throwing water while making strange sounds like "eh," "ya," and "ho ho." He climbed a ladder onto the fence, gave commands from the roof, and eventually began a speech or lecture. It was at this moment that Izawa realized for the first time that he was mad. This neighbor occasionally trespassed over the hedge, spilling a bucket of leftovers in the tailor's pigsty, throwing stones at the ducks, and then, as if nothing had happened, feeding the chickens only to suddenly kick them. Nevertheless, Izawa considered him a person of some standing and would quietly exchange nods with him. But what is the difference between a madman and a normal person? If there is a difference, it is perhaps that madmen are fundamentally more reserved than ordinary people. Madmen laugh loudly when they want to, give speeches when they feel like it, throw stones at ducks, or poke at pigs' faces and rumps for a couple of hours. However, they are fundamentally very afraid of being seen by others and make great efforts to isolate the main parts of their private lives from others with meticulous care. The reason for placing the entrance around the back from the gate was for this purpose, and their private lives were generally quiet, with little unnecessary verbosity towards others, and were contemplative. One side of the alley was an apartment building, constantly filled with the sound of running water and the coarse voices of women. Overshadowing Izawa's hut, sisters who were prostitutes lived there, and when the older sister had a client, the younger would pace the hallway, and vice versa. Just because the madman laughed loudly, people considered them a different breed. The wife with an intellectual disability was particularly quiet and docile. She would mutter something timidly under her breath, but her words were often inaudible, and even if they were, their meaning was unclear. She didn't know how to cook or even how to cook rice. She might manage if she tried, but if she failed and was scolded, she would become even more timid and make more mistakes. When she went to collect rations, she couldn't do anything on her own and just stood there while the neighbors helped her. People would say, "It's only natural for the madman's wife to be an idiot, and we shouldn't expect more." But the mother was greatly dissatisfied, exclaiming, "What good is a woman who can't even cook rice?" Despite this, she was usually a refined and well-mannered old lady. But when she had a fit of severe hysteria, she would become more ferocious than the madman, and her screams were the most disturbing and pathological among the three mad people. The woman with an intellectual disability was frightened, and even on peaceful days with nothing happening, she was always timid, flinching at the sound of footsteps, and when Izawa greeted her with a hello, she would become dazed and stand, frozen. The woman with an intellectual disability would occasionally come to the pigsty. The madman would boldly intrude as if it were his own home, throwing stones at the ducks and poking the pigs' cheeks, but the woman with an intellectual disability would slip in silently like a shadow, and hiding in the shade of the pigsty. It seemed to be her refuge. At such times, the grandmother's bird-like cries of "Osayo-san! Osayo-san" could often be heard from the neighboring house, and each time, the woman with an intellectual disability would react by shrinking or tilting her body, and when she had no choice but to move, she would do so with a long, repetitive motion like an insect resisting. At the time, newspaper reporters and cultural film directors were among the most looked down upon professions in society. What they understood was merely not falling behind the trends of the times, and that was the entirety of their lives. The pursuit of self, individuality, and originality did not exist in this world. Their daily conversations were filled with words like self, humanity, individuality, and originality, more so than those of company employees, bureaucrats, or school teachers. But these were just words, and in reality, they were foolish enough to use money to woo women and claim that the suffering of a hangover was a human concern. They would be moved to tears by emotions like the excitement of the rising sun, or thank you, soldiers, and immerse themselves in fictitious writings without any spiritual depth or genuine feeling, such as Zudo 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 for the sound of bombing and Pan 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 for the sound of machine guns, believing that this was the expression of war. Some would say they couldn't write due to military censorship, but there was no other clue to genuine writing, and the truth or authenticity of the writing itself was unrelated to censorship. In short, these people lacked substance in any era, possessing only an empty ego. They could be swayed from right to left depending on the trends, believing that the expressions of pulp novels were the expressions of the times. Indeed, the times themselves were nothing more than shallow and foolish. What connection did this war and defeat, which overturned 2,000 years of Japanese history, have with the truth of humanity? The fate of a nation was being swayed by the most superficial will and the reckless actions of the masses. When one spoke of individuality and creativity before department heads or company presidents, they would avert their faces with an attitude that said, "What a fool," merely tearing up with, "Thank you, I soldiers and, the emotion of the rising sun." That was the extent of the newspaper reporters, and in fact, the Times themselves were only that. When asked if it was necessary to spend 3 minutes copying down the division, commander's lengthy speech, or to write down the workers' peculiar morning song, from 1 to 10, or the department head averted his face, clicked his tongue, and suddenly turned to glare while crushing a precious cigarette in the ashtray, and shouting, "Hey, what is beauty in a tumultuous era? Art is powerless! Only the news is the truth." Directors formed cliques, and planning department members created a world of camaraderie akin to the long swords of the Tokugawa era, handling talent with obligations and human emotions, establishing a hierarchy more bureaucratic than that of company employees. This protected their mediocrity, viewed the struggle of artistic individuality and genius as a sin, considered it a union violation, and completed an organization for the mutual aid of talent's poverty. Inside, it was an organization for the relief of talent's poverty, but outside, it was an organization for acquiring alcohol, occupying national taverns, drinking 3 or 4 bottles of beer each, and discussing art. Their hats, long hair, ties, and jackets appeared artistic, but their souls and spirits were more bureaucratic than those of company employees. Izawa believed in the originality of art and could not resign himself to the uniqueness of individuality. Unable to find peace within the system of obligations and human emotions, and could not help but despise its mediocrity and vulgar base soul. He became an outcast of the clique, receiving no response to his greetings, and some even glared at him. Boldly entering the president's office, he argued, "Is there a theoretical necessity between war and the poverty of artistry, or is it the will of the military? If it's just about capturing reality, a camera and a few fingers are enough." We artists exist for the special mission of deciding from which angle to judge this and compose it into art. However, the president averted his face halfway through, made a bitter expression while puffing on a cigarette, and with a face that seemed to say, "Why don't you quit the company? Are you afraid of conscription?" He smirked bitterly, and with a face that said, "Just work diligently on the company's planned ordinary tasks, and if you can receive a salary for that, don't think about unnecessary things. You're too cheeky." He gestured for him to leave without saying a word. What is this if not the basest of base professions? If being taken as a soldier and being saved from the agony of thinking was possible, there were times when bullets and hunger seemed rather easier. At Izawa's company, while they were planning and creating storyboards with ideas like, "Don't let Rabaul fall" or "Planes to Rabaul," the U.S. military had already bypassed Rabaul and landed on Saipan. Before the planning meeting for the Battle of Saipan was even finished, Saipan had been annihilated, and from that Saipan, U.S. military planes began flying overhead. There was a strange passion for things like how to extinguish incendiary bombs, mid-air collisions, how to grow potatoes, not a single plane shall return alive, and energy conservation in airplanes. Strange films that instilled endless boredom were produced one after another. Raw film was in short supply, moving cameras were becoming scarce, and the artist's passion was frenziedly feverish, with their poetic spirit excited as if possessed by something. With themes like Kamikaze Special Attack Corps, Battle for the Homeland, and, The Cherry Blossoms Fall. And so, films that were as pale and endless as a sheet of paper were made, and tomorrow's Tokyo was on the verge of becoming ruins. Izawa's passion had completely faded. When he woke up in the morning, the thought of having to go to the company again made him feel sleepy once more. As he dozed off, the air raid warning blared, and he got up, wrapped his gaiters, and took out a cigarette to light it. If I skip work, even this cigarette will be gone, he thought. One night, when Izawa finally managed to catch the last train, there were no private railways left, so he walked quite a distance through the night to return home. When he turned on the light in his room, he found that the usual bedding was missing, and he wondered if someone had cleaned while he was away or if someone had entered. When he opened the closet, he found a woman with intellectual disabilities hiding beside the piled futons. She anxiously watched Izawa's expression and hid her face between the futons, but when she realized he wasn't angry, she felt relieved and surprisingly at ease. She only spoke in mutters, as if mumbling to herself, and her mutterings had nothing to do with Izawa's questions. As she continued to vaguely summarize and fragmentarily express only her own preoccupations, Izawa, without pressing her for answers, understood the situation and thought that she had probably been scolded and fled, here in desperation. So he refrained from asking questions that might frighten her unnecessarily, only inquiring about when and where she had entered. She muttered incomprehensible things, then rolled up one sleeve and, while stroking a spot, said things like, "It hurts," or "It still hurts," or "It hurt earlier," speaking in finely divided time increments. From this, it became clear that she had entered through the window after nightfall. The implication was that she had walked barefoot outside and entered, thus dirtying the room with mud, and she was apologizing for that. But it was difficult to piece together the meaning from her countless meandering mutterings. And it was impossible to make a definitive judgment on which path "I'm sorry" was connected to. It was difficult to wake the neighbors in the middle of the night to return the frightened woman. However, if he returned her after dawn, the fact that she had stayed the night could lead to misunderstandings. And since she was mentally unstable, he couldn't even imagine what those might be. Well, whatever. Izawa felt a strange courage welling up within him. The essence of it was merely an attraction to the curiosity and stimulation, against the emotional numbness of his life. But he thought that seeing this reality as a trial was necessary for his way of living. He told himself that apart from the immediate duty of sheltering the intellectually disabled woman for the night, there was no need to think or fear anything else. He reassured himself that he should not be ashamed of being strangely moved by this abrupt and astonishing event. After laying out 2 beds and having the woman lie down, Izawa turned off the light, and after a minute or two, the woman suddenly got up and seemed to crouch in some corner of the room. If it hadn't been the middle of winter, Izawa might not have been too concerned and fallen asleep. But that night was particularly cold, and even sharing a bed meant that the cold air outside touched the skin directly, making his body shiver with cold. When he got up and turned on the light, the woman was crouching by the door, clutching her collar, with eyes that seemed cornered and desperate. "What's wrong?" "Go to sleep," he said. And she nodded surprisingly easily and returned to bed. But after turning off the light for a minute or two, she got up again in the same way. Bringing her back to bed, he reassured her, "Don't worry, I won't do anything to touch your body." And she muttered something like an excuse with frightened eyes. When he turned off the light for the third time, the woman immediately got up, opened the closet door, entered, and closed it from the inside. Izawa was irritated by this persistent behavior. He roughly opened the closet and said, "What misunderstanding do you have? Despite my explanations, closing yourself in the closet is too much of an insult. Why did you flee to a house you can't trust? This mocks me, unjustly shames my character, and makes it seem as if you are some sort of victim. Enough of this farce." However, realizing that this woman lacked the ability to understand even the meaning of those words, and he thought there was nothing more foolish than this futile absurdity, and he considered that slapping her across the face and quickly going to sleep might be the wisest course. Then the woman, with a strangely unresolved expression, muttered something under her breath. It seemed to mean, "I want to go home, I shouldn't have come." But when she said, "I have nowhere else to go," Izawa was genuinely touched. "So, you should feel at ease and spend the night here. I only got angry because you acted as if you were a victim when I had no ill intentions. Don't go into the closet, just sleep in the futon," he said. Then the woman stared at Izawa and muttered something rapidly. "What? What did you say?" Izawa was so startled he nearly jumped. This was because he clearly heard the words, "You dislike me, don't you?" among her mutterings. When Izawa, eyes wide open, instinctively asked again, the woman's face turned despondent, and she began to ramble about how she shouldn't have come, how she was disliked, and how she hadn't thought so, all while staring vacantly into space. For the first time, Izawa understood. The woman wasn't afraid of him. The situation was quite the opposite. She hadn't come because she was scolded and had nowhere else to go. She had come relying on Izawa's affection. But had there been any event that would make the woman believe in Izawa's affection? They had exchanged greetings a few times near the pigsty, in alleys, or by the roadside. But everything was abrupt, like a farce. In front of Izawa, it was as if only the will and sensitivity of an idiot, something non-human, were being imposed. After 1 or 2 minutes with the lights off, Izawa couldn't be sure if it was truly painful for an idiot to feel disliked, because a man's hand didn't touch her body, and to be so embarrassed that she would leave the futon. Ultimately, she would shut herself in the closet, whether this could be interpreted as an expression of an idiot's shame and self-abasement. And there were no words to judge it, so in the end, he had no choice but to lower himself to the idiot's level. Why would he need a half-hearted human-like discretion? Would it be a human disgrace for him to possess the same straightforwardness of heart as the idiot? He, too, needed this childlike and honest heart more than anything. He had forgotten it somewhere, and was merely sullied in the thoughts of the busily moving humans, chasing a futile shadow, and was just terribly exhausted. He laid the woman down in bed, sat by her pillow, and stroked her forehead hair, as if putting his 3 or 4-year-old daughter to sleep. The woman opened her eyes vacantly, her demeanor no different from the innocence of a young child. "I don't dislike you. Human expressions of affection are not solely physical, and the final dwelling of a human is their hometown. And you are always like a resident of that hometown," Izawa started to say, earnestly. But of course it didn't resonate. After all, what are words, and what value do they hold? There is no proof that even human affection is the sole truth. Where is the genuine thing worthy of entrusting one's living passion? Everything is but a futile shadow. As he stroked the woman's hair, a desire to weep welled up, and he felt a poignant sensation as if this elusive small affection, without even a definite shadow, was his life's fate, and he was mindlessly stroking the hair of that fate. What will happen to this war? Japan might lose, the American forces might land on the mainland, and most Japanese might perish. It seemed like another supernatural fate, akin to destiny. But he had a much smaller problem. It was an astonishingly small problem, yet it loomed before him, constantly flickering and never leaving his mind. It was the 200 yen salary he received from the company, and the anxiety of how long he could continue receiving it, fearing he might be fired tomorrow and left destitute. When he received his monthly salary, he felt an overwhelming happiness for the 1-month extension of his life. But upon reflecting on its smallness, he always felt like crying. He dreamed of art. How could the mere 200 yen salary, like a speck of dust before art, cling to his bones and become a great torment that shook the foundation of his existence? Not only his life's outward form, but also his spirit and soul were confined to 200 yen? And staring at that smallness without going mad and remaining calm only made him feel more pathetic. The absurd loud voice of the department head, "What is beauty in a turbulent age? Art is powerless," pierced Izawa's heart with a completely different truth, sharply and with immense force. Japan will lose. Like clay dolls collapsing, compatriots will fall one after another, and countless legs, necks, and arms will soar with the debris of concrete and bricks, turning into a flat cemetery with no trees or buildings. Where to flee, which hole to be cornered into, and where to be blown away with the whole, it seemed like a dream. Yet if he could survive for that fresh rebirth, and for the completely unpredictable new world, life on a field full of rubble, Izawa felt rather curious. It was a fate that was bound to come in 6 months or a year, but despite its inevitability, it was only perceived as a distant play in a dream world. The decisive power of 200 yen, blocking everything in front of him and uprooting the hope of living, strangling him even in dreams, making him groan, and bleaching all the passions of his 27-year-old youth, leaving him to wander aimlessly over the dark wilderness of reality. Izawa wanted a woman. The desire for a woman was his greatest hope. However, life with that woman was bound by a limited budget of 200 yen. And everything from pots and pans to miso and rice was cursed by 200 yen. A child born under the curse of 200 yen, and the woman muttered daily like a demon possessed by the curse. The light of the heart, art, and the light of hope all vanished, and life itself was trampled like horse dung by the roadside, drying up and blowing away without a trace. Even the marks of nails disappeared. Such a curse clung to the woman's back. It was an unbearably petty life. He himself didn't even have the power to judge the pettiness of this reality. War. This great destruction, with its strange and bizarre fairness, judged everyone, turning all of Japan into a field of rubble, with clay dolls falling one after another. What a void, what a poignant, enormous love it was. In the arms of the god of destruction, he wanted to fall asleep, and when the alarm sounded, he rather felt alive and wrapped his gaiters. Playing with the anxiety of life was his only daily purpose. When the alarm was lifted, he felt disappointed, and the loss of desperate emotions began again. This intellectually disabled woman cannot cook rice or make miso soup. Standing in line for rations is the most she can manage, and even speaking freely is beyond her. Like thin glass, she reacts to the faint winds of joy, anger, sorrow, and pleasure, accepting and letting pass the will of others between her vacantness and fear. Even the evil spirit of 200 yen cannot dwell in this soul. Doesn't this woman seem like a sad doll made for me? Izawa imagined embracing this woman and walking through the dark wilderness, blown by the wind, on an endless journey. Nevertheless, the reason such thoughts seem so outlandish and absurd is that the trivial shell of humanity gnaws at the depths of the heart. Even knowing this, why does the straightforwardness of these burgeoning thoughts and affections feel utterly futile? Is there some essential rule that makes the prostitute in that apartment more human than the imbecile woman? And more so than some noble lady? However, it was a ridiculous situation, as if such a rule existed with absolute certainty. What am I afraid of? It's as if the evil spirit of those 200 yen, I'm trying to sever ties with that spirit through this woman, yet I am still bound by its curse. What I fear is merely the vanity of society. That society is nothing more than a gathering of apartment prostitutes, mistresses, pregnant members of the Women's Volunteer Corps, and wives with nasal voices squawking like ducks. There is no other society, yet I do not believe this obvious fact at all. I am frightened by a mysterious rule. It was an astonishingly short and simultaneously infinitely long feeling night. Though the long night seemed as if it would last forever, dawn began to break before he knew it, and the chill of dawn turned his entire body into something as senseless as stone. He continued to stroke the woman's hair as he sat by her pillow. I'm sorry, but it seems that no specific text has been provided for translation. Please input the classical text that requires translation. From that day, a new life began. However, apart from the fact that there was now one more woman's body in the house, there seemed to be no particular change, nor did anything feel different. It felt as empty as a lie, and he could find no sign of anything new sprouting around him or within his heart. He only understood the abnormality of the event rationally, and there was no change in his life significant enough to alter the arrangement of the furniture. Every morning he went to work, and during that time, a woman with intellectual disabilities was left in the closet, waiting for his return. Yet, as soon as he stepped outside, he completely forgot about the woman, feeling as if the event had happened 10 or 20 years ago, like a distant memory. War possessed a strangely healthy nature of oblivion. Indeed, the astonishing destructive power of war and the changes in space could bring about centuries of change in just one day, and making events from a week ago feel like they happened years ago, and events from a year ago were relegated to the deepest recesses of memory. It was only recently that the roads near Izawa and the buildings around the factories were demolished, causing the entire town to erupt in a frenzy of evacuation like swirling dust. Yet, even though the aftermath had not been cleared, it felt as distant as a commotion from a year ago, and the significant changes that transformed the town's appearance became nothing more than an ordinary landscape upon a second glance. Among the miscellaneous fragments of that healthy oblivion, the face of the imbecile woman also faded. Amidst the sticks from the evacuated tavern in front of the station where lines had formed until yesterday, and the holes in buildings destroyed by bombs, and the charred remnants of the town, the face of the imbecile merely lay scattered. However, the air raid warnings blare every day. Sometimes the air raid sirens also sound. When that happens, he becomes extremely uneasy. This is because he worries that an air raid might occur near his home while he's away, and some unknown change might actually take place. Yet, the only reason for his worry is the fear that his wife might panic and run out, and that it would become known to the neighbors. Because of his anxiety over unknown changes, he couldn't return home during daylight. He repeatedly and futilely rebelled against the misery of being unable to overcome this vulgar anxiety. He wished he could at least confide everything to the tailor, but he despaired at his own cowardice, for it was nothing more than a miserable means to alleviate anxiety by making the lightest confession of damage. And he cursed and resented the fact that his essence was no more than the vulgarity of the common world. There were two faces of imbeciles he could never forget. At unexpected moments, such as when turning a street corner, climbing the stairs at work, or squeezing through a crowded train, he would suddenly recall those two faces, and each time, all his thoughts would freeze, and a momentary surge of anger would solidify into hopelessness. One of those faces was the face of the imbecile when he first touched her body. And though the event itself faded away by the next day, as if it were a memory from a year ago, only that face remained vividly remembered. From that day on, the woman, who was simple-minded, became nothing more than a being that existed to wait, devoid of any other life or thoughts. She was always just waiting. A mere touch from Izawa's hand on any part of her body would focus all her consciousness on the physical act, and both her body and face were simply waiting. Astonishingly, even when Izawa's hand touched her in the dead of night, her sleeping body would react the same way, with only her flesh always alive, just waiting, even while asleep. But if one were to consider what was happening in her waking mind, it was originally just emptiness, with only the coma of the soul and the living flesh. Her soul slept while awake, and her body was awake while asleep. There was only unconscious carnal desire. It was merely a body that awakened at all times, reacting incessantly like an insect. Another face, it was precisely on Izawa's day off. During the day, there was a 2-hour bombing raid in the nearby area. Without an air raid shelter, Izawa and the woman crawled into the closet, using a futon as a shield. The bombing concentrated in an area 400 or 500 meters away from Izawa's house. But the shock was so great that the entire house shook. With the sound of the bombing, both breath and thought were interrupted. Even with bombs falling in the same way, there is a significant difference in terror between incendiary bombs and regular bombs. Incendiary bombs have a particularly eerie rattling sound, but since there is no explosion sound on the ground, the sound vanishes smoothly overhead. It's truly a case of a dragon's head with a snake's tail, lacking even a tail, and thus lacking a decisive sense of fear. However, bombs, though their falling sound is small and low, draw a rain-like sound and finally create an explosion sound that tears the ground. Therefore, the terror contained in just one sound is immeasurable, and the despairing fear when the sound of explosions approaches with a thud, thud, thud is truly life-threatening. Furthermore, because the aircraft fly at high altitudes, the buzzing sound of the American planes passing overhead is very faint, resonating as if nothing is happening. It's as if being struck by a large axe by a monster looking away. The uncertainty of the attacking opponent's presence makes the distant roar very unsettling. And from there, the rain-like falling sound extends. The fear while waiting for the explosion stops words, breath, and thought. The despair that this time it's the end shines vividly with a coldness on the verge of madness. Izawa's shack was fortunately surrounded by two-story buildings like apartments, a mental hospital and a tailor, so while nearby houses had broken windows and damaged roofs, his shack alone didn't have a single crack in the glass. However, a blood-stained air raid hood had just fallen in the field in front of the pigsty. Inside the closet, only Izawa's eyes were shining. He saw the face of the simple-minded woman, and the despairing agony trying to grasp the void. Humans have reason. At any time, there remains at least a shadow of restraint or resistance. How miserable it is when even that shadow is absent. The woman's face and entire body were fixed in fear and agony, open towards the window of death. The agony moved, the agony struggled, and the agony shed a single tear. If a dog's eyes shed tears, it would look as ugly as a dog laughing. How hideous are tears without even a shadow of reason. During bombings, children aged 4 or 5 to 6 or 7 strangely do not cry. Their hearts beat like waves, they lose words, and only their unusually large eyes are wide open. The only part of them alive is their eyes, but they are merely wide open, not necessarily expressing direct and dramatic anxiety or fear. They seem more rational than their natural childlike state, quietly suppressing emotions. At that moment, all adults are only that, or rather even less, because they express blatant anxiety and agony towards death, making children seem more rational than adults. The simple-minded woman's suffering was entirely different from the children's large eyes. It was merely instinctual fear and suffering towards death, neither human nor even insect-like, just an ugly movement. If there were something similar, it would be the movement of a slightly bloated caterpillar writhing, and a single tear fell from those eyes. There were no words, no screams, no groans, and no expression. She wasn't even aware of Izawa's presence. For a human, such loneliness should be impossible. For a man and a woman to be just the two of them in a closet and for one to completely forget the other's existence should be impossible for humans. People speak of absolute solitude, but absolute solitude only exists when one is aware of another's presence. And could there be such a blindly unknowing absolute solitude? It was like the solitude of a caterpillar, the wretchedness of that absolute solitude's appearance, the unbearable ugliness of the agony without even a shadow of the heart. The bombing had ceased. Izawa lifted the woman in his arms. But even when his fingers brushed against her chest, she showed no response. She had lost even that primal desire. Holding her body, Izawa felt an endless, dark, and infinite descent. That day, he went for a walk immediately after the bombing and saw women's legs blown away. Women's bellies with intestines spilling out, and women's twisted necks among the collapsed houses. Izawa wandered aimlessly through the ruins of the March 10th air raid. Amidst the still rising smoke, people lay dead everywhere, like skewered grilled chicken. The sight of them clumped together in death was just like grilled chicken. It was neither frightening nor filthy. There were bodies burned with dogs, but it was truly a dog's death. Yet there was not even the sadness or sentiment of a dog's death. It was not that humans died like dogs, but rather that dogs and something else similar were simply arranged like a plate of grilled chicken. It was neither a dog nor, of course, a human. Even if a foolish woman burned to death, wouldn't it be just like a doll made of earth returning to the earth? If the night came when incendiary bombs rained down on this city, Izawa couldn't help but be aware of his own strangely calm demeanor, face, and eyes as he pondered this. I am calm, and I am waiting for the air raid. That's fine, he sneered. I just hate ugly things. And isn't it just that a body without a soul burns and dies? I won't kill a woman. I am a cowardly, vulgar man. I don't have the guts for that. However, the war will probably kill women. All I need is a small clue to direct the war's cruel hand over the heads of women? I don't know. Perhaps at some moment something naturally resolves it. And Izawa awaited the air raid with extreme composure. I'm sorry, but it seems that no specific text has been provided for translation. Please input the classical text that needs translation. It was April 15th. 2 days earlier, on the 13th, there was a second nighttime air raid in Tokyo. Areas like Ikebukuro and Sugamo in the Yamanori region were affected, but by chance, Izawa obtained a disaster certificate and went to Saitama to buy supplies, returning with a small amount of rice in his backpack. Just as he arrived home, the air raid warning began to sound. Anyone could imagine that the next Tokyo air raid would come to this city, considering the areas that remained unburned. The fateful day for this city would come as early as tomorrow or at the latest, within a month. The thought that it might be as early as tomorrow was based on the pace of the previous air raids and the short intervals between the preparation periods for nighttime bombing by formations. But Izawa did not expect this day to be that day. Therefore, he went out to buy supplies, but he had another purpose as well. The farmhouse was connected to Izawa from his student days, and his main objective was to leave the items packed in 2 trunks and a backpack there. Izawa was utterly exhausted. His travel attire also served as an air raid suit, so he collapsed in the middle of the room with his backpack as a pillow and actually dozed off during this urgent time. When he suddenly awoke, radios blared loudly from all directions, and the lead formation was already approaching the southern tip of Izu, having passed it. Simultaneously, the air raid warning began to sound. This is indeed the last day for this city, Izawa intuitively felt. He put the fool into the closet, hung a towel, and with a toothbrush in his mouth, headed to the well. He nostalgically recalled the refreshing sensation of the Lion brand toothpaste he had acquired a few days ago, and upon sensing the fateful day, he somehow felt like brushing his teeth and washing his face. However, the toothpaste had moved just slightly from where it should have been, and it took him a long time, it seemed like an incredibly long time, to find it. Once he finally did. The soap, this soap was also an aromatic old-fashioned cosmetic soap, had also shifted slightly, and it took a long time to find it as well. "Ah, I'm flustered, calm down, he thought, bumping his head against the cupboard and stumbling over the table. As a result, he tried to halt all movement and thought for a while to unify his spirit, but his body instinctively hurried and slipped about. Finally finding the soap and stepping out to the well, Izawa saw the tailor and his wife throwing their belongings into the air raid shelter at the corner of the field, while the attic girl, who resembled a duck, wandered around with her luggage hanging from her arms. Izawa congratulated himself on his persistence in finding the toothpaste and soap without giving up, and wondered, what will be the fate of this night? Before he could finish wiping his face, the anti-aircraft guns began to roar. When he looked up, more than a dozen searchlights were crisscrossing above. Pointing directly overhead, and in their light, American planes floated clearly. One after another, more planes appeared, and when he glanced down, the direction of the station had already become a sea of fire. It had finally come. Once the situation became clear, Izawa finally calmed down. He donned his air raid hood, wrapped himself in a futon, and stood under the eaves, counting up to 24 planes. They floated in the light, all passing overhead. Only the sound of the anti-aircraft guns continued to roar madly, and the sound of bombing was not heard at all. From the moment he counted the 25th plane, the familiar rattling sound, and like a freight train rushing over a guard, began as incendiary bombs fell, but they passed over Izawa's head and seemed to concentrate on the factory area behind. Unable to see from the eaves, he went to the front of the pigsty and looked back to see the factory area engulfed in flames. To his surprise, American planes were coming one after another from the opposite direction of those that had been passing overhead, adding to the bombardment of the entire rear area. Then the radio stopped. The entire sky was covered with a thick curtain of red smoke, and the American planes and searchlights disappeared completely from view. Except for a corner in the north, all around was a sea of fire, and that sea of fire was gradually approaching. The tailor and his wife were cautious people who had always prepared their air raid shelter for storing goods, and they had mud ready for sealing it. They packed the shelter with goods according to procedure, sealed it with mud, and covered it with soil from the field. With this fire, it's impossible, the tailor said, crossing his arms in the attire of an old-time fireman, watching the flames. Even if we try to put it out, it's impossible. I'm going to flee. If I die in the smoke, so be it, he said, loading a mountain of belongings onto a handcart. Teacher, let's retreat together, he invited. At that moment, Izawa was seized by a tumultuous and complex sense of fear. His body was about to slip away with the tailor, but with a mental resistance that seemed to shake off the movement, he stopped himself, feeling as if a piercing scream erupted simultaneously from a corner of his mind. He was almost paralyzed with fear, thinking that this momentary delay might lead to his death by fire, but somehow he managed to resist the natural urge to stagger away. I, for one, will stay here a little longer. I have work to do. As an artist, when faced with the extreme limits of life, I'm called upon to make my final stand at that extreme. I want to flee, but I can't. I cannot miss this opportunity. You all should flee now. Quickly, quickly, a moment's delay will make everything too late. Quickly, quickly! A moment's delay will make everything too late. Everything refers to Izawa's own life. Quickly, quickly, it was not a voice urging the tailor, but a voice born from his own desire to escape as soon as possible. For him to flee this place, it had to be after everyone around him had left. Otherwise, they would see his idiotic appearance. "Well then, take care, teacher," the tailor called out, pulling out the handcart in a hurry. The cart bumped into the corners of the alley as it left. That was the last sight of the residents of this alley fleeing. Like the infinite sound of raging waves washing over rocks. Like the infinite sound of countless fragments from anti-aircraft guns falling on the roof. An eerie, continuous sound with no pause or variation persisted infinitely. It was the sound of the footsteps of a group of evacuees flowing along the main road. The sound of the anti-aircraft guns had become out of place, and a strange life seemed to dwell within the flow of footsteps. Who could discern this infinite flow of strange sound as footsteps? The heavens and earth were filled with countless sounds. The roar of American planes, anti-aircraft guns, the sound of falling, the sound of explosions, footsteps, fragments hitting the roof. However, only the few dozen meters around Izawa formed a small darkness in the middle of the red heavens and earth, and completely silent. A peculiar thickness of silence and a maddening thickness of solitude enveloped him entirely. Just 30 more seconds, just 10 more seconds to wait. Why and who was giving the orders, and why did he have to obey them? Izawa felt as if he were going mad. Suddenly, he felt like writhing, crying out, and blindly running away. At that moment, a sound like something falling and swirling inside my ears descended right above my head. In a panic, I ducked down, and the sound abruptly vanished above me, as if it had never been, and silence returned to the surroundings. "Well, that was a scare," Izawa muttered as he slowly stood up, brushing the dirt off his chest and knees. When he looked up, he saw the house next door was spewing flames. So, it finally fell, he thought, surprisingly calm. As he noticed, the houses on either side and the apartment right in front of him were also spewing fire. Izawa dashed into his house. He flung open the closet door. In reality, it came off and fell with a clatter, and, wrapping himself in a futon like cradling an idiot child, he ran out. The next minute was a complete blur. As he approached the alley's exit, another sound targeted his head from above, rising from his crouch. He saw the tobacco shop at the alley's exit spewing fire, and flames were bursting out from the family altar in the house across the street. When he turned back after leaving the alley, he saw the tailor shop also starting to spew fire, and it seemed that Izawa's shack was beginning to burn as well. The surroundings were completely engulfed in a sea of fire, and there were few people evacuating on the road, with only sparks flying madly around. Izawa thought it was hopeless. When he reached the crossroads, it was extremely crowded, with everyone heading in just one direction, the direction where the flames were the farthest. It was no longer a road, but a flow of human screams and luggage, pushing and shoving, trampling over and being swept away. When the sound of something falling approached overhead, the flow temporarily lay flat on the ground and stopped mysteriously, with only a few men running over the flow. However, most of the people in the flow were with luggage, children, women, and the elderly calling out to each other, stopping, turning back, being bounced off at the end. And the flames were closing in on both sides of the road. They came to a small crossroads. Everyone in the flow was heading in one direction here as well, because that was where the flames were the farthest. But Izawa knew there were no vacant lots or fields in that direction. And if the next incendiary bombs from the U.S. forces blocked the way, this road would only lead to death. On one road, the houses on both sides were already burning wildly, but Izawa knew that beyond that, a small river flowed. And if he followed the river upstream for a few blocks, he could reach a wheat field. There were not even any silhouettes of people running through that path, which made Izawa's resolve waver. But then he suddenly saw a lone man about 150 meters ahead, pouring water on the raging flames. Though he was pouring water on the flames, it was not a brave figure at all, just someone hanging a bucket, occasionally trying to pour water, standing idly, or walking around with strangely dull movements, a foolish figure that made one struggle to interpret the man's psychology. In any case, since one person could stand there without being burned to death, Izawa thought, I will test my luck. Luck! Indeed, all that was left was a single chance, a decision to choose it. There was a ditch at the crossroads. Izawa soaked the futon in the ditch. Izawa put his arm around the woman's shoulder, covered them with the futon, and bid farewell to the flow of the crowd. As he took a step toward the path where the fierce flames danced wildly, the woman instinctively stopped, swaying as if being pulled back toward the flow of the crowd. "Fool!" Izawa shouted, gripping the woman's hand tightly and pulling her, embracing her shoulders as she stumbled onto the road, whispering, "If you go that way, you'll only die," as he held her body close to his chest. When we die, we'll be together like this. Don't be afraid. And don't leave my side. Forget about the fire and the bombs. The path of our lives has always been this road. Just keep your eyes straight on this path and hold onto my shoulder tightly. Do you understand?" The woman nodded. Her nod was awkward, but Izawa was almost driven mad with emotion. In this long, long time of fear, amidst the bombings day and night, it was the first time she had shown her will, her one and only answer. Izawa was almost overwhelmed by her endearing determination. Now he was holding a human being, and in that embrace he felt infinite pride. The two of them ran through the raging flames. As they emerged from beneath the mass of hot air, the sides of the road were still a sea of flames, but the buildings had already burned down, the fire's intensity had weakened, and the heat had lessened. There was another ditch overflowing there. He poured water from her feet to her shoulders, soaked the futon in water once more, and covered them again. Burnt luggage and futons were scattered on the road, and 2 people lay dead. They seemed to be a woman and a man around 40 years old. The 2 of them once again put their arms around each other and dashed through the sea of flames. They finally reached the banks of a small river, but there, the factories on both sides of the river were blazing fiercely, leaving them unable to advance, retreat, or even stop. However, as they looked around, they found a ladder placed over the river, covered the woman with the futon, and Izawa jumped down all at once. People who had parted ways were walking in the river in groups of 3 or 5. The woman occasionally willingly immersed herself in the water. Even dogs had no choice but to do so, but Izawa, captivated by the freshness of the newly born woman, widened his eyes and devoured the sight of her bathing in the water. The river began to flow into the darkness beneath the flames. Although there was no complete darkness because the entire sky was dyed with the color of fire. Izawa was rather dazed by an inexplicable great fatigue and an endless sense of emptiness in the darkness he could see again. Beneath it, there was a small relief, but it seemed strangely stingy and ridiculous. Everything felt absurd. As they climbed out of the river, a wheat field spread out before them. The wheat field was surrounded by hills on 3 sides, about 3 blocks square, with a national highway cutting through the middle of it. The houses on the hills were burning, and the bathhouse, factories, and temples at the edge of the wheat field were burning, each with flames of different shades of white, red, orange, and blue. Suddenly, the wind began to blow, the air roared, and fine droplets like mist rained down all around. The crowd was still flowing like a snake along the national highway. There were a few hundred people resting in the wheat field, which was not a significant number compared to the crowd flowing along the highway. Beyond the wheat field was a hill with a grove of mixed trees. There were hardly any people in the woods on that hill. The 2 of them laid out a futon under the trees and lay down. At the edge of the field below the hill, a farmhouse was burning, and a few people could be seen pouring water on it. Behind it was a well, and a man was operating a pump with a clatter to drink water. Suddenly, about 20 people of all ages and genders rushed from all directions of the field toward it. They operated the pump with a clatter, taking turns drinking water. Then they warmed themselves by the fire of the house that seemed about to collapse, jumping away from falling fire chunks, turning their faces away from the smoke and talking. No one was helping to extinguish the fire. "I'm getting sleepy," the woman said, and among her murmurs of "I'm tired, my feet hurt, and my eyes hurt" about 1 in 3 times, she said, "I want to sleep." "You can sleep," Izawa said, wrapping her in the futon and lighting a cigarette. While he was smoking several cigarettes, the all-clear siren sounded in the distance, and a few policemen were walking through the wheat field announcing the all clear. Their voices were uniformly hoarse, not sounding like human voices. Those within the jurisdiction of Kamada Station. "Gather at Yaguchi National School, which has been spared," they announced. People rose from the furrows of the field and descended to the highway. The highway was once again overflowing with waves of people. However, Izawa did not move. A policeman came up to him. "What happened to that person? Were they injured?" "No, they're just sleeping from exhaustion." "Do you know Yaguchi National School?" "Yes, I'll take a break and go later." "Have courage. It's just a small thing like this." The policeman's voice faded away. His figure disappeared, leaving only 2 people in the thicket. Just 2 people. Yet wasn't the woman merely a lump of flesh? The woman was sound asleep. Everyone was now walking through the smoke of the burnt ruins. They had all lost their homes and were wandering. They probably weren't even thinking about sleep. The only ones who could sleep now were the dead and this woman. The dead would never awaken again, but this woman would eventually wake up, and by waking, she could add nothing to the lump of flesh that had fallen asleep. The woman was snoring faintly, a sound she had never heard before. It resembled the grunt of a pig. Izawa thought that the woman herself was indeed just like a pig. And he suddenly recalled a small fragment of memory from his childhood. Under the command of a gang leader, a dozen or so children were chasing a piglet. Cornered, the gang leader cut off a piece of the pig's rump with a jackknife. The pig neither made a pained expression nor uttered a special cry. It seemed unaware that its rump had been cut, merely running around. Izawa thought of himself and the woman, rolling and fleeing amidst the dust and collapsed buildings. As American forces landed, heavy artillery shells whistled in all directions. Concrete buildings were blown away, and American planes swooped down, strafing with machine guns. In the shadow of the collapsed concrete, a man pinned down the woman, indulging in carnal acts while tearing off and eating the flesh of her rump. The woman's rump flesh gradually diminished, but she was only thinking of lust. As dawn approached, it began to get cold, and despite wearing a winter coat and a thick jacket, Izawa found the cold unbearable. In various parts of the barley field below, there were still patches of burning fire. He wanted to go there to warm himself, but he couldn't move because he feared the woman would wake up. He felt an inexplicable dread at the thought of her waking. While she was sound asleep, he thought of leaving her behind and walking away. But even that felt troublesome. When a person discards something, even if it's just a piece of paper, there is a sense of worth or cleanliness in doing so. The value or cleanliness of abandoning this woman had already been lost. There was no affection or lingering attachment, but there was no value in abandoning her either. There was no hope for tomorrow, no reason to live. Even if he abandoned her tomorrow, would there be any hope somewhere? What should he rely on to continue living? He didn't even know where there was a house to live in or a place to sleep. The American forces had landed, and destruction was occurring everywhere, and the immense power of that war's destruction would judge everything. He could no longer think of anything. When dawn broke, Izawa planned to wake the woman, ignore the burnt ruins, and set out to find a place to sleep, aiming for a station as far away as possible. Would the trains be running? As he leaned against the railroad tie fences around the station to rest, he wondered if the sky would clear this morning and if the sunlight would shine on his and the pig's back beside him. It was because this morning was unbearably cold.